information out there about those next upcoming events. But, Dave, one last thing I want to put out there before we make our call for our first guest. A legendary guest. Yes, Michael Schiavello. And this segment of the show, the interview with Mr. Schiavello, the voice, is brought to you by Tri-County Cab of Peoria, Illinois, Central Illinois' best cab company. It's 309-497-1111. Put it in your phone now for when you need it later. Play up. Don't get caught drinking and driving. But also, I wanted to throw this number out there. For those listening, if you guys got questions for any of our guests tonight, the call-in number for guests, if you don't see it there on your page, it's 347-945-7551. Call in, push 1, and you'll be there muted, but you'll be there listening to the show, and just hang tight. We'll get to you as quick as we can. We're not ignoring you. We're just trying to get in where we fit in, if you know what I mean. But Jay, without further ado, I'm going to get my phone dial in here, and if we can get a host of the Voice Versus.
Hello.
Good evening, Michael.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Oh, doing great. This is Big Perm with UMOR. You're
hey,
on
Big
live
Perm.
with me. You're on live
Good
with
to
me
hear,
and my
mate.
co-host. Good to hear from you, man. I'm super excited to have you on the line.
Yeah, it's good to be on here. For all the wrong reasons, the Yankees losing, but all the same, good to be on with you guys.
For sure. Well, you're also on with Dave the Butcher Clifford. Dave, you hanging there, man?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an honor to me, and I bet you that I can somewhat empathize now with how you felt sitting across from people like Hulk Hogan and Steven Seagal, because I'm interviewing someone who's a hero to me, and thank you for losing, Yankees.
My absolute pleasure. You can thank Alex Rodriguez for this interview.
No doubt.
Yeah, I just loved it when my Tigers put the big kibosh on these Yankees. That's for sure.
Man, the big kibosh, you guys swept us completely. I did not expect that. You know, Tigers are a great team, and they fully deserve where they're going now. But to be swept 4-0, 5-0, 4-0, it was crazy.
Oh yeah, and they never led once during the series, and
nah, not at all.
Really
they fully deserve to be in the World Series. I'm happy for you guys. I was driving through Detroit just a few days ago because I went over the border to do a show in Sarnia, and I dared not wear any of my Yankees gear.
That's a good idea. That way you get to take your car home with you.
Exactly.
So a good friend of mine, Lionheart Tony Hervey, fought on that card. How did he look?
You know what? He got a victory, but not the way that he wanted it, I'm sure. He fought George Brito, and Brito broke his arm punching Hervey, and so Hervey was awarded the fight via TKO. You know, Hervey's a character. I didn't think he looked that great. I'd like to see a rematch in the future. It's going to take a while because Brito's arm was a complete break. You know, Hervey wasn't overly impressive. I don't think it's a victory to celebrate so much. It's more so that his opponent lost due to an injury more so than Hervey won.
Yeah, very true. But when you look it up in the future, it's just going to be a notch in the. So hopefully he gets together. And I know he's recommitted to his training lately. He's got a nice little group down there, of course, in Detroit. And I was really glad to hear you announce that when I hear you commentating.
Yeah, he's a fun guy with that freaky hairstyle of his, and I look forward to seeing more of him in the future, particularly on the Score series.
Mm-hmm. He's just a genuinely good cat, too. And I guess speaking of that, you know, obviously it shines through in all of your work. I mean, whenever you ask people who their favorite commentators are, your name always comes up in the conversation. Anyone that watches MMA, I mean, anybody that's familiar with things that are more than just UFC. And you actually started this. You're self-made. I mean, you were 16 years old commentating football matches. Of course, to everyone else in the world, that's soccer. And or to everyone here in the States, that's soccer. Why don't you tell us about how fun that was and how you discovered this talent?
You know, when I was 16, the first commentary I ever did actually was athletics, or you guys call it track and field, at Melbourne's Olympic Park. It was a high school athletics meet. It was what we call the APS Championship. So it was all the big high schools in Melbourne, Australia, gathering together at Olympic Park, and that was my first time ever commentating. And I sort of just fell into it. A friend of mine said, "Hey, do you want to, commentate, this event with me for the sort of like the school video, the official video. And I was like, oh yeah, it gets me out of a few classes and gets me some time away from the classroom, so why not? And I just found I had a natural talent for it. I love being behind the microphone. I love the entertainment of it. You know, I love the feeling of it being live, even though it was on it was on video. You know, the call is always live to video. There's no editing and no post on it. So I sort of got a thrill out of it. And after that, I began commentating some Australian rules football games on radio, and then shortly after began commentating soccer on live radio. And then when I was 21 or 20 years old, I got asked to commentate my first ever fight event, which was a kickboxing event in Melbourne. Never done it before, and I did it for the first time, and I had a talent for that. And that was right when pay TV, cable TV was coming on in Australia, and Fox Sports, which is the big sports channel down there, heard me as a raw, 20-year-old and said, hey, we're just coming aboard and we're going to take on kickboxing. Do you want to commentate for us? So by the time I was 21, I was the youngest sports commentator on Aussie TV and doing all the kickboxing, and one thing led to another, and here I am today. And it's been a thrill ride the whole way through.
Well, I tell you what, and it sure shines through. I mean, often the best at their craft are people that love what they do. I mean, for sure. Now, another thing that you're famous for, and something that Perm and I like to do, I mean, we've had a few legends on this show. We've had, of course, Dan the Beast Sever and Ken Shamrock and Frank Shamrock, some of the coolest people that you could interview. And you got well known for interviewing people like Pele. I mean, you got to interview Pele at a young age. How'd you figure that one out? Now, when did you start interviewing people?
You know what? I began interviewing people, again, at 16 years old. I began working on a community radio station back home called Southern FM. It was a Sunday morning sports show, really tiny radio station that maybe had all of a few hundred listeners. But I always wanted to do things big from the very start. So no one was going to tell me that I needed to interview just local, regional sports stars. I wanted to get big guys on the radio. So, this was in year 11 in high school, 16 years old, and I'd wait till the tennis players came to town for the Australian Open, or the cricket players or soccer players, and I just had this uncanny knack for being able to call up these big-name people and somehow get through to them and get these exclusive interviews that guys from network television, couldn't get at 16 and 17 years old. And I used to freak out the guys on the radio station, my producer and the show's host, because I'd ring them during the week to go, hey, I've got an interview with Pele or an interview with Madonna or an interview with Gabriella Sabatini or Stefan Edberg. And they go, well, what? How the hell did you get them? And I couldn't explain it. I sort of just had a knack for it. And, Pele was one of the first real big ones I did. I won a junior writing competition, a junior journalist competition when I was 16 or 17 years old. And part of my prize was to go and meet Pele at a press conference. And I actually got a bit of time with him at this press conference and did a really nice interview with him. And he was so, such a lovely guy. And it's a funny story to this one, guys, is that would have been 4 or 5 years later, I was the editor of a magazine called Soccer International magazine, which was the largest ever soccer magazine in Australasia, which I actually co-founded in 1993. And I went to Sydney as Pele was doing a dinner, a guest function in Sydney. And I went up to Sydney and met Pele again, and I had a copy of the photo that I'd taken with him as a 17-year-old blown up. And I went up to him and I showed him the photo and I said, hey, Pele, this is when I was 17 and you were lovely enough to give me an interview. Would you mind signing my photo? And he's like, no problem. He asked me, what's your name? And I said, Michael. And obviously my accent, I guess he didn't understand, so he ends up writing Dear Marco instead of Dear Michael on this photo. It's my most cherished photo I have, and it's hanging in my bedroom, my old family house back home, and it's Dear Marco, best wishes, Pele. I dared not tell him at the time. It's just one of those funny stories you've got to explain every time someone sees the photo.
That's awesome. It's a great story. What a great charmed life. And, when you see this, and when I get to hear this from someone that's right at the top, it gives me hope. It's really inspirational to a lot of us out here that love to talk and love to talk about things that they like. And this is a real special show tonight. Of course, it's a co-host, Big Perm's birthday, and I'm going to let you go ahead and ask the next question, Jeremy.
Oh, Big Perm, happy birthday. Do they call you Big Perm because you actually have permed hair?
No, sir, I am bald.
You're one of my bald brothers. That's a beautiful thing.
Yes, sir, that is me. And,
although you have to get up with the knowledge now. It's no longer politically correct to say we're bald. We are follicularly challenged.
There you go, publicly challenged. That's right, my man. Well, listen, Michael, I mean, you've commentated, well over 4,000 fights in your career for, gosh, everybody from K1 to MFC to XFC, Adrenaline, King of the Cage. I mean, all of them, Sengoku. You can keep going on and on. The first time I heard you, I was like, who is this guy? You just had this really signature style and just this way you call fights. And I just wanted to know, man, where did that come from? I mean, the big kibosh, Goodnight Irene, and you're just full of all kinds of one-liners. Where'd that come from?
Again, it's a case of not doing anything like anyone else was doing it. Just I try and tell everyone when they ask me about commentating events, and especially I get a lot of first-timers emailing me and Facebooking me saying, hey, voice, I'm doing a commentary show, can you give any advice? And my advice is, to embrace it and to own it and be yourself and have your own style. Don't try and imitate anyone else. I guess if there was anyone that I really loved that I didn't try and imitate or emulate, but just wanted to be like exciting and entertaining was, well, I guess, Gorilla Monsoon. May he rest in peace, my favorite commentator of all time. I'm an old-school pro wrestling fan. I used to love Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body Ventura. And then, it's just a matter of having a catchphrase.
Lord Alfred Hayes. Remember Lord Alfred Hayes and Gorilla? They would go back and forth.
Yeah. I've still got all the old WrestleManias on DVD and on old video cassettes, and I always throw them on and watch them, and I just love those old days. And, it's just a matter of stamping your own identity onto events that you do. And, there's a funny story about Goodnight Irene I'll tell you guys as well, because I can hear that you're pro wrestling fans. Goodnight Irene actually came about because from my love of pro wrestling, it was, if you remember a guy called Adorable Adrian Adonis who passed away many years ago, he had a finishing move. Yeah, he had a finishing move. There was a sleeper hold that was called the Goodnight Irene, and Gorilla Monsoon used to call it the Goodnight Irene. And so I sort of used that as my catch cry. I first screamed Goodnight Irene, I think, when I was 16 or 17 years old, commentating the athletics or the soccer or whatever it was. And, they always tell you that the universe brings you what you want and what you ask for in life. And, earlier this year I married a girl named Irene. So it's one of those freaky things.
Wow.
I was going to ask that next. I was going to say, well, was she your sweetheart? But no, she's not. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's just one of those really strange coincidences. I mean, when I first met her, we started going out. I said to my mates, I go, listen, I met this girl. And they're like, what's her name? And I'm like, well, you know what would be the strangest irony for me to have met a girl what would be her name? They're like, don't tell me you met a girl named Irene. I'm like, yep. Can you believe it?
And you guys have a great relationship. I follow you on Facebook, and I see your banter back and forth, and of course look at pictures, and always people in the business, and it's really cool. You live a charmed life, sir, and it's just a pleasure to hear about it and to share that with you tonight, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we have a lot of fun, and it's a charmed life in many ways, but it's a lot of another thing I like to say to people, it's a lot of hard work to get there. I remember the days, like you guys, when I was doing radio for years and getting paid nothing for it, doing soccer commentary on radio every weekend and getting paid nothing. I was reporting for local newspapers, reporting for several magazines, getting paid nothing, just wanting my byline in a newspaper and my voice on a radio. And even when I started out, commentating television when I was really young for Fox Sports, I was lucky if I was getting $100 a gig, It's something you don't turn your nose up at. The good money doesn't come until much later when you've established yourself and you've proven yourself, and you've got to have that passion and that desire to get through those early days and think to yourself, okay, I have a talent here. I know that maybe if I apply myself and I have that enthusiasm, that passion, I build the knowledge, I can get that money one day. I can get that contract with an American network or an Australian network. You've got to start from the ground up, and nothing ever happens overnight. And there's a lot of people that want to sort of take the short route, and a lot of people that will spend years at a school trying to educate themselves. But I think, particularly commentary and especially working in radio and even working on magazines is not necessarily something you can go to school for. You can do journalism school, but which I actually went to college to study journalism, and I flunked out of college. I dropped out after 2 months because I hated it. They weren't teaching me.
I went for 30 days.
And I figured I could teach myself to write better, and I did. So just another message for those people that are listening, that are looking to go via a media path in their life. It's like, you know what, if you've got the passion to do it, that's about 80% of what you need. You don't need to, you can basically teach yourself and educate yourself if you have that passion to really drive you over the line.
Well, and it's a lot like college, what we're doing now. My primary job, of course, is a ring announcer. I call the Warriors to the Steel. and do a little commentary, and now I just love interviewing people, and it's a lot of fun to find out what people that are at where I would like to enjoy being someday have done. And you're right, it's a lot like college right now. I've been at it for about 4 years now, and I've made it a living.
Yeah.
And I'm just, because if you don't love it, you won't do it.
You've got the passion for it. You guys are doing the radio, and I'm glad to be on the show today and to hear guys that are passionate and enthusiastic. But you have to start somewhere. And the thing is, like how you guys were saying, it's an honor for you to interview me. It's like go for the big names. You know, you'll be surprised at the amount of people that will say yes. If it's just a matter of timing, really. I mean, if I wasn't free today, I would have been free next week. I've got pardon me, a couple of other radio stations that are asking me for interviews. One that's been asking for the last 3 weeks, but they're always asking me on a Wednesday night, and just every Wednesday night I'm traveling to wherever we've got shows. So I'm like, hey guys, I'll do it in a couple of weeks, or I'll book in a date, but never be afraid to go for the big names. And it's the same with the Voice Versus series now on Access TV. I get the privilege of doing interviews on television, so I can show my interview skills on TV for the first time ever, and going after those names that I want to interview and I enjoy watching or listening to, and it's a dream come true for me as well.
Well, that was my
awesome
question, Michael. That's your show on AXS TV now, the Voice Versus series. You get a chance, like you said, to interview all these people that you're interested in, just as we are, like tonight, talking with you. Do you ever get intimidated when these guys are on the set and when you're sitting there in front of them? Because, I know tonight when I was getting ready to talk to you, I'm like, man, I hope I don't sound like a freaking idiot talking to this guy. I mean, do you still feel that? Do you still get that?
No, I get butterflies, and the butterflies are really excited butterflies, but I think it's after years of just interviewing so many people, I think there's several keys to conducting a good interview. One is you've got to be researched and you've got to be prepared. And you guys are doing a good job. You've already looked into a bit of my background and asked me questions about that, which shows that you did your research. And that really sets you apart. I think any interviewer sets you apart from anyone else. There's a lot of people out there who don't research their subjects and therefore ask just these willy-nilly questions and go off on tangents that have no relevancy. So the fact that I utterly research everyone so thoroughly, whether it be Seagal or Hulk Hogan or Sugar Ray or Michael Jai White, whoever it may be, I've got a list of I'll probably compile a list of like 50, 60 questions that I'll cull down to the basic 20 that I really want to ask. So there's no real nerves going in because I know I'm prepared. I know that if they go off on tangents, I know how to get it back on track. I know how to steer an interview the way that I want to steer an interview. And, it all comes down to, again, the lesson I sort of say to everyone is just own whatever medium you're doing. If you're commentating, own the microphone. If you're interviewing, own the interview and know where you want it to go, but also be prepared to be able to ad-lib. And then if it goes on a tangent, you just takes you on a tangent. You don't always get the chance to come back to your preset questions. You've got to know how to keep feeding questions on, work a different tangent before you can eventually bring it back to where you want to go. It's like playing a game like backgammon. You might get a roll of the dice that isn't the roll you want. You get put on the bar, and until you can get your checkers back on the board, and start bearing them off, you've got to go where it's going to go, so you get it back on track. And that's the same with interviewing someone.
Yeah, it certainly is. And one of the things that I make a point to do is write down physically with a pen my notes. I never put them through a printer. That way I have a link to what I've done already. I'm asking the question as I'm writing it, and I try to do that as well. And one of the cool things about it is I can tell through your interviews is when you get to interview someone that you want to interview, when you're really interested in their answers, it just creates a brand new and takes you to a different level, and it really does show in your work.
Well, the thing is that, again, it comes down to that research. You look at a Steven Seagal interview that I did that premiered a couple of weeks ago, and I knew Seagal was a traditional martial artist. Thank you very much. I knew he was a traditional martial artist, and my knowledge of traditional martial arts is pretty thorough. So when he threw out little names like, he'll say someone like Kano Jigoro really quickly. Now, 99% of people wouldn't know that's the founder of Judo. But, it's just being knowledgeable and being able to go, oh, okay, the founder of Judo, and then you see him smile and he gets that comfort zone with you because he looks back at it and he goes, okay, this dude knows what he's talking about. So he feels comfortable throwing out those names. Or when Hulk Hogan threw out a certain name from wrestling or, a certain date or a certain event to be able to be researched and to know about it and then be able to feed off it. So it all, whenever you're doing an interview, no matter who it is, with always the research is primary, first and foremost.
Well, Michael, do you have a few more minutes? I got a few fan questions if you got a few more minutes.
I've got a few more minutes. Not a problem, guys. Take your time.
Right on. Well, the first one comes from William out in San Jose, California. He says, you've written for several publications. Which one was the most exciting for you personally, and which one do you feel was the best for recognition career-wise?
Man, I've written for probably more than 50 publications around the world over the years. I don't do as much writing anymore, but that's how my career really started. I guess the most fun one to do ever was Soccer International magazine was good because, like I said, I co-founded that in 93. I got to cover the World Cup. I went to America in 94 to cover the World Cup. I went to France in 98 to cover the World Cup. Recognition-wise, probably writing for Inside Sport magazine in Australia. I guess it's the Australasian equivalent to Sports Illustrated. It's the best sports writers in Australia are contributing to that magazine. And to get to write for them for a couple of years was an awesome experience.
Well, and just to travel to the different World Cups had to have been an awesome experience as well, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that was tremendous. So two of the most memorable, if not, the two World Cups and also doing the Olympic Games in Beijing where I commentated on the boxing in 2008 were just, three of the most memorable trips ever.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Beijing Games because the next question comes from Christian in Detroit, Michigan. And Christian asks, what was being a part of the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing like, and what was your most memorable moment from that?
Oh, tremendous. I can't put words to it how brilliant an atmosphere it was. We went over there for 3 weeks. We got flown out a week before the game, and I was commentating for the ABU, the Asian Broadcasting Union, so we were going into about 110 different countries, I think the count was. So we got flown out there a week before, and the guys were like, hey, you know what? You got a week now just to party and to do touristy stuff, and they organised for us to go to Tiananmen Square and walk the Beijing Wall and do all this different stuff. And then it was also the hardest work I ever had to do because once we started the games, I was commentating by myself 272 fights in about 11 days. It was crazy. Long hours every day. But, you get through it. And I guess the highlight of that, well, the whole event was a highlight, but if I had to single any one fighter out, there was a guy called Vasil Lomachenko, a Russian, who won the gold medal in one of the lighter weighted divisions. And his run through 2008 was just superb, and commentating him to that gold medal match was just something I'll never forget.
It had to have been a hell of a ride.
Boy, I bet even somebody like you could run out of metaphors in that many fucking rounds, huh?
Oh man, I had to make up a whole lot of new ones for that. It was pretty arduous, but a lot of fun.
Well, and one thing I bet you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
I just wanted to make note of something that I remember from watching that Cobo Hall King of the Cage where so many of my friends fought on that card. During the Ben Lagman fight, you dropped like three of the coolest things I've ever heard to this date said at a fight. Like you're like taking more shots than 8 Mile, and then there was a Bon Jovi style shot through the heart. I mean, do you research your metaphors as much as you do your interviews?
No, not really. Sometimes, people ask me if I have them written down and stuff like that, which I don't, but, you'll be doing stuff and they'll just pop into mind. Like, the more shots than 8 Mile is something I wouldn't use out of Detroit. It was my first time in Detroit, and I thought, 8 Mile. And so a funny story that I'll tell you about that quickly is that driving around that day with Frank Trigg and Maria Kanellis, the former WWE diva who was with us on HDNet for a bit, we were driving down 8 Mile because we wanted to check it out, and I was amazed at just how crazy it was down there. It looked like a war zone in parts. And we pulled up the lights, and there were these two gangbangers in this car next to us, and I'm winding down the window and taking photos and taking video. And Maria's like, oh, my God, Michael, what are you doing? Wind your window up. Are you serious? I see you taking photos. I'm fucking chill out. Wind your window up. I'm like, all right, relax. It was fun.
You stopped at a stoplight down there? Jeez.
I know. We dared stop at a stoplight. Luckily, we had Frank Trigg in the car, but
right.
I would have been safe with Pat Miletich, though, but yeah, it was okay.
I'm sorry, Jeremy. Go right ahead with your next question, brother.
Oh, that's all right. We've only got a couple minutes left. I don't want to take too much more of Michael's time tonight. One question that we always like to ask our guests: if there was tag team MMA, who would you put inside the steel? What two fighters would you team up against? What two fighters?
Geez, that's a very good question. Wow. Okay, you'd have to go a team of, let's say let's say a team of, let's do light heavyweights maybe. So let's maybe go a team of John Jones with John Jones and Rampage. That could be a fun tag team. John Jones and Rampage against maybe, let's go Anderson Silva. Let's bump him up a weight class. Let's go Anderson Silva and Chael Sonnen. So let's go the two middleweights bumping up against John Jones and Rampage. I think that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The interview would be great.
That'd be fun. And hopefully Anderson Silva will just kick everyone's ass and Chael wouldn't even get an opportunity to get tagged in, and that'd be nice.
Well, Michael, there was one more fan question that I don't want to leave hanging. I like to take care of our fans.
Okay, go for it.
Dana from Houston, Texas says, what an honor to be the first commentator ever to receive a nomination for the Leading Man Award at the World MMA Awards in Vegas. What was your reaction after getting the call, and have any other commentators ever been nominated?
No other commentators have been nominated. My reaction was, I was astounded. I remember I was in Korea, in Seoul, Korea, just having commentated a K1 event when I found out, and I was blown away. The group of people I was nominated with, Dana White, Scott Coker, Bjorn Rebney, were just an illustrious group of people, and to be the only commentator nominated in there was an honor. I remember going to the awards with Irene, and we had a great time, and the awards was a very well put on event. It was something I'll never forget. It's one to have on the resume, and one to be able to tell the grandkids one day. And it was a privilege, and I hadn't been on American television for that long when it happened, and for me it was just sort of an indication that, hey, I was doing something right, and I was getting across to the fans, and they were getting behind me, and it was just nice that it all came together really well. And again, just sort of like a bit of validation for me, being this Aussie guy that no one outside of, no one in America had really heard of, and to be nominated by fans that were mostly American fans online was a huge, just a huge honor.
I can only imagine, man. Shoot, I can't even imagine that kind of feeling. Well, listen, Michael,
great.
I just going to say there's our boxing bell for the 2-minute warning, which means we got about 2 minutes left.
Cool.
Your show, The Voice Versus, airs on AXS TV. What night of the week does that air again?
Well, the Voice Versus show is actually on randomly. It's whenever we hook up a guest, then we announce the date. So it's not a regular thing. It's more like a Barbara Walters sort of special. We've got another guest that we're trying to line up at the moment, which I think will happen over the next month or so. I can't say who, except to say we might be taking a trek back into pro wrestling territory. There's a couple of pro wrestlers out there I really want to get my hands on, so I've been in contact with this one who's a legend, and hopefully we'll get that one on there very soon. We're 10 episodes in, and it's going really well, and we'll try and get one or two more done before the end of the year, and then kick off another set in 2013.
Is it Ric Flair?
It is not Ric Flair.
Ric Flair or Mick Foley would be my choice.
It is neither of those two. I'll tell you that much.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to all of your interviews, and the lead-ups are always great. You always tease it perfectly. You never overbear with your advertisement. You're a true master of your craft, and it has been an honor. If there's anyone you'd like to plug, you may go right ahead, sir. Any sponsors or anything coming up or any events that you're going to be working this week?
No, I just want to say, everyone can follow me on Twitter. It's @Schiavello Voice. Also on Facebook. I know the original page is full, but there's a Voice Versus page, and there's a Voice Schiavello page. And I want to say thank you to you guys for doing a great job, a great interview. I really enjoyed it, and you guys have been researched and very professional, and your producers calling me and texting me and reminding me and letting me know everything made it very, very easy for me, which is something to say in this business. A lot of people do radio shows that aren't as professionally conducted as yours, so you guys are definitely on the right path, and anytime you want to give me a buzz again, just let me know in advance, and we'll try and hook it up, and we don't have to wait and see the Yankees lose anymore in 2013 just to get another interview.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Well, are you rooting for the Tigers now to beat whoever they get in the series?
You know what? I got to say though, if San Francisco gets in the series, I got to go for San Fran, because outside of New York, it's my favorite American city. So I know I'm going to put the knife in there and twist it around and dig it into your spine a little bit. But if the Cardinals get through, I'll go for Detroit. If San Francisco gets through, I'll go for San Fran.
Well, I'm now rooting for the Cardinals, sir, and thank you once again so much. This has been just a real treat, and thank you again.
David, thank you. Big Perm, thank you, and happy birthday to you again, brother. My bald brother, enjoy it, embrace the baldness, and chat to you guys soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.
See you.
Awesome. Wow. Wow.
That was fucking great, man.
Wow.
I had a great time.
Amazing.
Talking with him for sure, man. And to hear him say that, you know, that we're on the right track, and just to listen to him about, you know, how he cut his teeth and what he did, you know, it makes me feel good about what we're doing here, and you know, talking about his days in radio, doing, you know, what he did and not getting paid. It seems to be kind of like what we're doing right now. We're doing it more for the love of it than the money, and it's just a blast, man. Getting to talk to guys like Schiavello and the legends like Shamrock and Mezger and Severn. I mean, gosh, I don't know, man. It's been a great birthday so far.
Yeah, and one thing he certainly mentioned, and we want to definitely make mention of, along with our sponsors, our producer, Chris Maltsburger. Without him, I mean, Michael obviously told him about it, said it made it very easy. He does a lot of stuff that we don't even notice. He always gets us our guests, so big thank you to you, certainly, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, and, you know, speaking of Chris Maltsburger, he and I